Hello everyone, welcome to Dentospedia, one of the best platform for global dental board exam. And today I am going to give you a short lecture on endodontic microbiology. So let us see the chapter. Coming to introduction, now, the microorganisms are the primary cause of the pulpal and the periapical disease. So this chapter explains how the microorganism they cause the pulpal and periapical diseases. So it is important clinically as well as theoretically. So these microorganisms are the primary cause for any pulp and periapical disease. The endodontic infection, which means the infection of the root canal system. So the infection from these microorganisms, they spread into the root canal system, inside the root canal, and when they go beyond the apex of the root of the tooth, then they are the major cause of these apical periodontitis. So here the apical periodontitis occur. So it starts from the crown of the tooth and then they go beyond the root canal and then they mainly cause apical periodontitis. The infection usually follows pulpal necrosis, means the death of the pulp, and this happens due to caries or due to trauma or periodontal or operative injury. Coming to the bacterial pathways into the pulp. So let us see how these bacteria they invade into the pulp. First, the root and the mechanism. Through dentinal tubules. So they enter through dentinal tubules. This is the most common route for this bacteria and they follow the carious lesion or the cavity preparation. So here through the carious lesion or to the cavity preparation through the dentinal tubules they enter into the pulp and the bacteria penetrate along the dentinal tubules into the pulp. Second is direct pulp exposure. The direct pulp exposure occurs due to any trauma, fracture or caries which reach the pulp chamber. So in case of any fracture or any trauma of the tooth, the block of the crown is removed which causes the direct exposure of the pulp by the bacteria. Third is the coronal leakage. The coronal leakage may happen from any defective restoration. In case of the restoration, if the tooth is not properly restored, and there is a leakage is left, then it may cause the bacterial invasion into the pulp or through any micro gaps or recurrent caries allowing the bacteria entry. So through any coronal leakage, the bacteria may enter into the pulp. Fourth, root resorption. It might be internal or external root resorption. This root resorption is explained very thoroughly in the chapter and it is very important from exam point of view. The resorptive defects opens the pathway to the pulp. So due to the root resorption, maybe due to any internal or external root resorption, the bacteria may enter to the pulp. Coming to periodontal root, through any lateral or accessory canals or apical foramen or exposed dentinal tubules in the deep periodontal pocket. So, the root canal, the terminal end of the root canal is via apical foramen. And these apical foramen and the accessory canals, they are the pathway for the bacteria to enter into the pulp. So, through the periodontal root, that is through the laterally or accessory canals or apical foramen, they enter into the pulp. Lastly, hematogenous or lymphatic root, which is also known as ankyrosis. Now, this terminology is very important from exam point of view. Ankyrosis, which means the bacteria from the bloodstream, they localize in inflamed or necrotic pulp, and then these bacteria enter into the pulp. But they are very rarely in seen, mostly possible after bacteremia. So when the bacteria they enter from the bloodstream and they localize in this inflamed and the necrotic pulp, then it is known as ankyrosis. So these are the most common route or the pathways how the bacteria invade into the pulp, in which the most common route is the carious lesion. Through carious lesion, they enter into the dentinal tubules, and from the dentinal tubules, the bacteria enter into the pulp. Now in the diagram, we can see the various pathways like infection via trauma. So the crown has got fractured and which causes the direct exposure to the pulp, or infection via carious lesion, infection via leaky restoration. The restoration is not done properly and so it causes leaky restoration through which the bacteria may enter into the pulp. Infection via periodontal ligament, or infection, there might be mixed infection with the facultative or anaerobes. Coming to sequelae of microbial infection of the pulp space. So firstly, these microbes, they cause the dental decay at first, and then they cause pulp infection, and this pulp infection is known as pulpitis. Then later, this pulp infection, they spread to root canal system. This root canal system, which is known as root canal infection, and lastly, when the root canal infection, they spread beyond the apex of the tooth, it is known as periapical tissue infection. So let us study the sequelae. First, the dental caries, or through trauma or periodontal diseases, or any due to operative procedure like cavity preparation, the inflammation of pulp occurs. That is known as pulpitis. Then the progresses into pulp necrosis, which is death of the pulp tissue. Here the tooth becomes non-vital. Non-responsive to any cold test, EPT test. Now the microbial ingress into the root canal. So now these microbes, they enter into the root canal. Anaerobic environment develops here, and this anaerobic environment which develops here, they are ideal for microbial growth. And then early infection is dominated by facultative bacteria. What are facultative bacteria? They mostly grow in anaerobic condition, but they can also survive in the presence of oxygen. So they are best suited for anaerobic condition, but they can also grow in the presence of oxygen. And they utilize these necrotic pulp tissue as their nutrition source. And lastly, as the oxygen decreases, these facultative bacteria, they are further replaced by obligate anaerobes. And these obligate anaerobes, they cannot live in the presence of oxygen. They require fully anaerobic condition. Then the interaction between all these species, it causes the formation of resistant microbial biofilm. So biofilm is the communication between the different species which helps them to attach to any surface like root canal. So the interaction between all these bacterial species causes the formation of biofilm within the root canal. And then this biofilm, they persistence. So chronic infection, now they spread beyond the apex, which results in the periapical periodontitis, that is the inflammation of periradicular tissue. So firstly, there was dental caries or trauma, which causes pulpitis, that is the inflammation of pulp. Later, it progresses into pulp necrosis, and later the anaerobic environment develops through which the microbia enter into the root canal, and firstly facultative bacteria occurs, and later they are replaced by obligate anaerobes, and due to the interaction between all these species, a biofilm is produced, and this biofilm persistent causes the infection beyond the apex, resulting in periapical periodontitis. So thank you for your cooperation. For such more videos, please download the Dentospedia app today. Thank you.